Okay, so let's get into this. When we talk about A-list Hollywood careers, you usually think of a certain kind of trajectory.
Right. A steady climb, maybe a little dip here and there, but generally.
Upwards,
Exactly.
exactly. But then you have Robert Downey Jr., and his professional life is, well, it's not a straight line. It's this terrifying, magnificent, and I think a completely unique story.
Oh, absolutely. It's not a trajectory, it's a narrative arc.
Huh.
I mean, it's the classic three-act structure, but played out for real under the harshest spotlight you can imagine.
And that's our mission for this deep dive, right? To really unpack the specific moments, the roles, the catastrophic personal failures.
And the industry mechanics that let him come back. We're tracing this path from, a true child of cinema, this troubled prodigy,
All the way through being basically an institutionalized addict.
to becoming the $14.3 billion global powerhouse he is today.
That number, you just have to stop on that for a second. $14.3 billion worldwide gross.
It's staggering.
It really is. Statistically, he's one of the highest grossing actors of all time. I mean, few people have ever touched that level of commercial success.
And now, as of last year, the critical side is complete. He's got the Academy Award, 3 Golden Globes, 2 BAFTAs. He's done it all, really. He's hit both the commercial and the artistic peaks.
Which brings us to the core of this, the central tension that makes his story so compelling.
Exactly. The image you have of RDJ today, this quick-witted, charismatic Oscar winner who basically defined the biggest film franchise in history,
Tony Stark.
Tony Stark. That image stands in just, almost unbelievable contrast to the reality of where he was just over 2 decades ago.
The period where he was, what's the industry phrase? Untouchable.
A risk too great to justify. And that's what we need to map out. How in 2001, at that absolute rock bottom, he was homeless, he was facing bankruptcy.
And crucially, he was deemed uninsurable.
The insurance companies just would not sign off.
Yep.
So to go from literally unemployable, financially ruined, to being the highest paid actor in Hollywood just a decade later.
That's the story. That's the reversal we need to explore piece by piece. So to really get the sheer velocity of that fall and then the resilience of the climb back up, we have to start at the very beginning.
Right back at the start. A childhood that was just steeped in the world of independent film, maybe too deeply.
Robert John Downey Jr., he was born in Manhattan, April 4th, 1965.
And his entire environment was film. His father, Robert Downey Sr., was this underground independent filmmaker.
Known for his really absurdist, sometimes controversial work.
Yeah, and his mother, Elsie Ann, was an actress. She was in his father's projects all the time. So they were artists who just lived and breathed this world, which meant RDJ was immersed in it from, day one.
And we also see this really rich, complex heritage. His father was Lithuanian Jewish, Hungarian Jewish, and Irish. His mother had Scottish, German, and Swiss ancestry, a real mix.
But beyond that heritage, I think the most defining factor of his early life was just chronic instability.
And it was tied directly to his father's film projects, right?
Completely. The sources talk about this childhood of constant upheaval. Frequent moves, no fixed center. He lived everywhere. Woodstock, London, New Mexico, California, Connecticut.
And Greenwich Village, of course.
Of course. So this constant shifting meant his sense of grounding wasn't physical. It was tied to this chaotic, often emotionally difficult context of his parents' own struggles.
And the struggles were intense. Both parents, we know, grappled with substance use, his father with drugs, his mother with alcoholism.
Which brings us to that just profoundly difficult and tragic detail about where his own substance abuse issues started.
He's been very public about this. Downey himself has stated that his father introduced him to marijuana at 8 years old.
Just 8. And the emotional context he later gave for that is what's so heartbreaking.
He said using drugs with his father was, and this is a direct quote, his way of showing love for me in the only manner he knew.
Can you imagine the psychological impact of that on a child? It creates this fundamentally damaged emotional bond where substance use gets tangled up with connection, with acceptance, with love.
It's the worst possible setup for a young man who's also trying to navigate the instability of a life in the arts.
And yet, somehow, his talent was just undeniable. His acting career started almost immediately.
His debut was at age 5 in 1970, and you can't rush past his detail. He played a sick puppy in his father's absurdist comedy pound.
A sick puppy. Then he was in Greaser's Palace at 7. This wasn't a normal childhood. It was just this immediate, unfiltered exposure to being on set.
But interestingly, that really unstructured start was balanced a bit by some formal training.
Right, he attended Stage Door Manor, which is a pretty prestigious summer acting camp when he was 11 and 12.
So you have this dual life, the chaos of his father's sets, and then this highly disciplined, methodical training at a camp. It must have really honed his natural gifts.
Even if his, conventional schooling suffered for it.
It definitely did, because he ultimately just rejected that traditional path. He dropped out of Santa Monica High School in 1982. He was 17.
And moved back to New York City to pursue acting full-time. He was doing the whole struggling artist thing.
The sources mention it all, clearing tables at a restaurant, working in a shoe store.
And performing his living art at that nightclub area, all while he was trying to get auditions.
And this period of, grinding it out leads directly into the mid-'80s, the Brat Pack era.
He starts getting credited roles.
Yeah.
Baby, It's You in '83. But the breakthrough really comes when he plays a bully in the John Hughes film Weird Science in 1985.
Kind of ironic given his later status. He was also in Back to School that year.
And here's a great piece of trivia that I think a lot of people forget. In the Marvel era, he tried sketch comedy.
Oh, right. Saturday Night Live.
He joined the new, much younger cast of SNL in 1985. And he apparently got that audition with some help from his Weird Science co-star, Anthony Michael Hall.
But that was a total failure, right? It was an early sign that not everything he touched was going to turn to gold.
A huge failure. That 1985 cast got terrible reviews, the ratings were in the tank, and the whole new cast, including RDJ, was just dismissed after one season.
But it's interesting, even with that early failure, he just kept moving. He lands a defining role almost immediately after that, one that turned out to be chillingly prophetic.
Julian Wells in Less Than Zero, 1987.
Yeah.
Based on the Bret Easton Ellis novel.
And this was the role that got him undeniable, widespread critical acclaim. He's playing this spiraling, drug-addicted, rich kid whose life completely falls apart.
And critics went crazy for it. They saw this raw, terrifying authenticity in his performance.
I remember Roger Ebert's review. He called the performance so real, so subtle, and so observant that it's scary.
It didn't feel like acting to people. It felt like you were watching real self-destruction.
And this is where the personal and the professional just collide in this really haunting way. Downey later admitted that playing Julian Wells was his ghost of Christmas future.
Yeah, he said that by the time they finished the film, his real-life drug habit had pushed him to become an exaggeration of the character in reality.
So the art didn't just mirror his life, it actively fed it. It accelerated the real-life spiral.
And all through this period, he was in a very serious long-term relationship with Sarah Jessica Parker.
Right. They met on the set of Firstborn in 1984. They lived together for 8 years, which is, a lifetime in Hollywood.
But that relationship ended in 1991. And the reason cited was directly his escalating, unmanageable drug addiction.
So the foundation of his personal life was already just crumbling, even as he was about to hit the biggest artistic moment of his early career. So the 90s start with what really should have been his artistic coronation. 1992, he gets the lead in the biopic, Chaplin.
This was the moment. This was when the industry fully recognized him as a truly serious dramatic actor.
And the commitment he showed for that role, it was extraordinary, especially when you hear him later call himself an incredibly gifted faker.
Right. It just flies in the face of that. The sources say he trained for 6 months. He learned to play the violin and tennis left-handed, just like Chaplin.
He worked with a dialect coach to get the accent, the mannerisms, everything perfect. It was a total immersion.
And the result, critically, was a masterpiece. Now, the film itself...
Still a box office bomb. That's the detail that gets overlooked. It didn't connect with a mass audience at all.
But Downey himself was universally praised. That performance got him the BAFTA for Best Actor, and most importantly, his first Academy Award nomination, and a Golden Globe nomination.
He's barely 27 at this point, and he's establishing himself as this transformative, dramatic force, on par with the greats of his generation. He had reached the artistic summit.
But just as that professional ascent peaks, the personal chaos just keeps accelerating.
In 1992, after this whirlwind 6-week courtship, he marries the singer and actress Deborah Falconer. They have a son in 1993.
It was another attempt at stability, but it was being built on a foundation that was just completely unstable.
And by 1996, the chaos had completely taken over the narrative. His friends were starting to get really worried.
Yeah, the sources tell us his friends, including Sean Penn and Dennis Quaid, saw how bad it was. They staged an intervention, drove him to a rehab center in Tucson.
But it failed. He checked himself out just a few days later.
And from that moment on, really, The years between 96 and 2001 were just a relentless legal nightmare.
A brutal cycle of arrests, missed court dates, failed drug tests, short jail stints, and then immediate relapses.
The first really big public arrest was in June 1996. He got pulled over for speeding down Sunset Boulevard.
And they found heroin, cocaine, crack cocaine, and an unloaded .357 Magnum in his car.
And then, just a month later, you get the infamous Goldilocks incident.
Ah, yes. He wanders into a neighbor's house in Malibu while he's under the influence.
The door was unlocked. He just goes in and falls asleep in one of their children's beds.
And the family, they declined to press trespassing charges, but the 911 call got out.
It became this surreal cultural moment. It wasn't just, a professional failure. It was this bizarre public failure of just basic personal functioning that both horrified and captivated people.
And this pattern of instability, the missed court-ordered drug tests, it all led to more and more serious jail time.
In 1997, he spent 6 months in Los Angeles County Jail. But that finally culminated in 1999 in a much longer 3-year prison term.
At the California Substance Abuse Treatment Facility and State Prison in Corcoran.
And we really need to pause on Corcoran. This wasn't some, cushy celebrity rehab.
No. Corcoran is known for housing some of California's most serious high-security offenders.
So to be sent there, even to the substance abuse part of it, was a brutal, humiliating shock. He spent nearly a year locked up, despite having this high-powered legal team.
It just shows you how completely the legal system had taken control of his life, driven by his own repeated failures to just comply with probation.
And during this whole period of disintegration, he was getting fired from other projects, too. He was supposed to voice the devil in that NBC animated series, God, the Devil and Bob.
But he just couldn't show up. He couldn't make it to the recording sessions.
So then you have one of the most abrupt, whiplash-inducing pivots in this whole story. In the year 2000, he gets an unexpected early release.
Right, on $5,000 bail, after an appellate court judge ruled his cumulative time served was enough. And what does the industry do when this famously chaotic man walks free?
A week later, he joins the cast of Ally McBeal, a massive hit TV show.
His character, Larry Paul, a love interest for Ally, becomes an immediate phenomenon.
It completely revitalized the show. It boosted the ratings significantly, earned him a Golden Globe and Emmy nomination. It was a spectacular, immediate, and just totally improbable comeback.
But the personal foundation was still rotten. He said later that the Ally McBeal period was, ironically, his lowest point in terms of addictions.
He found the performance kind of shallow in retrospect because his real focus was just on managing his addiction day to day.
And the arrests kept coming, which proved that the show's success was just this beautiful temporary distraction.
He gets arrested again on Thanksgiving in 2000 in Palm Springs, possession of cocaine and Valium.
But even then, facing almost 5 more years in prison, he commits to doing 8 more episodes of the show.
Until the final straw, April 2001. He's found wandering barefoot in Culver City, and he tests positive for cocaine.
And that was it. The producers had invested so much in rewrites and marketing around his character, but they had finally reached their breaking point.
They ordered last-minute rewrites and reshoots to write him out of the show, and they dismissed him in April 2001. His character's story was literally cut short by the actor's own actions.
He eventually pleaded no contest to the Palm Springs charges, and he only avoided more jail time because he was ordered into rehab under California's Proposition 36.
And we should explain that, because it was a huge deal at the time. Prop 36 was a voter-approved law that basically mandated treatment programs over incarceration for nonviolent drug offenders.
RDJ's case became this high-profile test for how that policy would actually work. It was a massive intervention, moving him out of the punitive system and back towards a therapeutic one.
But the damage was done, professionally, financially. Like we said at the top, by this point he was literally homeless, he was bankrupt.
And the industry considered him completely uninsurable, a professional ghost.
And we also get this critical medical context during this time. His stepmother, Rosemary, went public saying he'd been diagnosed with bipolar disorder a few years ago.
She suggested that this untreated condition was a major reason he struggled so much to stay sober, that he hadn't been consistently on medication or in intensive psychotherapy.
A psychiatrist also confirmed that Downey had reached out from prison in 1999 asking for advice about it, confirming he suspected he was bipolar because of these cycles of manic hyperactivity and then deep depression.
That clinical context just adds this huge layer of understanding to the crisis he was in, and it all led to the final collapse of his first marriage.
Deborah Falconer filed for divorce in 2001. It was finalized in 2004, and she was granted full custody of their son. He was at rock bottom. Every single metric you could measure, artistic, financial, legal, domestic, he was at the absolute bottom.
So, the journey from being uninsurable, bankrupt, and fired from a hit show in 2001 to becoming the biggest movie star on the planet 7 years later. I mean, this is what defines his whole story.
This is the pivot, the great second act. And the sources say the turning point really began in 2001, but he's been officially consistently sober since July 2003.
That decision to fully embrace sobriety was the non-negotiable foundation for everything that came next.
And he credits this really multifaceted, holistic approach to his recovery. His wife, first and foremost, but also therapy, meditation, 12-step programs, yoga.
And of course, Wing Chun Kung Fu.
And what he told Oprah Winfrey about it is so important. He didn't say the process of recovery was easy, but he said the initial decision was the real challenge.
His words were, "What's hard is to decide to do it. It's that internal switch from resistance to acceptance. That's what opened the door."
And you fast forward over a decade, and you see the symbolic end of that whole legal chapter. In 2015, Governor Jerry Brown formally pardoned him for all those prior drug offenses.
Which was more than just symbolic. It restored his civic rights, like his ability to serve on a jury. A truly clean slate.
But getting back into Hollywood was a really delicate, slow, and conditional process. It didn't start with a blockbuster.
Not at all. His first job after getting out of rehab in 2001 was almost comically humble. He lip-synced in the music video for Elton John's I Want Love.
It was a minimal commitment, a zero-risk way for him to just show his face again.
But the real hurdle, as we've said, was the insurance risk. No major studio would touch him.
And this is where the power of friendship just completely changes the story. The person who took the gamble was his longtime friend, Mel Gibson.
Gibson, who at the time was still a huge Hollywood power player, personally paid Downey's insurance bond for the 2003 film The Singing Detective.
That was it. That was the crucial first step. The one moment of financial trust that let RDJ get back on a major film set and prove he could show up, stay clean, and deliver. It was this act of personal loyalty that literally restarted his career.
But even with that bond, studios were still extremely cautious.
Oh, yeah. The source material talks about the specific safeguards they put in for his next film, Gothica, in 2003. The producer, Joel Silver, who became a huge supporter of his, he took no chances.
Silver withheld 40% of Downey's salary until production was completely finished.
It was a financial handcuff, a clear message designed to protect the production's investment from a potential relapse.
Now, Gothica was critical not just for his career, but for his entire life. This is where he met the producer, Susan Levin.
Right, she was an executive at Silver Pictures at the time, and the sources say she was pretty hesitant at first. She was all business, and he had a reputation.
But they started a quiet relationship during production. He proposed the night before her 30th birthday, and they got married in a Jewish ceremony in 2005.
And crucially, they later co-founded their own production company, Team Downey.
It just cannot be overstated how important Susan Downey is to this story. She's cited over and over as the cornerstone of his lasting sobriety. She set clear boundaries, and their professional partnership created this stable, focused environment for his talent.
But before the Iron Man phenomenon, he had this really powerful, critically acclaimed run in indie films. This was his professional audition for the big leagues.
Absolutely. The mid-2000s are just filled with incredible performances. You think of Kiss Kiss Bang Bang in 2005.
That performance was hailed as one of his most enjoyable. You can see the blueprint for Tony Stark there. The charisma, the fast-talking, that semi-improvisational style.
And then he shows his serious dramatic chops in George Clooney's Good Night and Good Luck that same year.
And then there's the really dark Philip K. Dick adaptation, A Scanner Darkly, in 2006, where he's playing a drug addict again. Critics called his performance ferociously entertaining.
And his work in David Fincher's Zodiac in 2007 as the journalist Paul Avery that cemented it. Critics said he was back at the top of his performance game.
All of this successful, stable, critically celebrated work led directly to 2006 and the role that would change everything, Tony Stark in Iron Man.
The story of his casting is legendary because he was not the obvious choice at all.
Not even close. The studio board, specifically Marvel executives, reportedly thought the director, Jon Favreau, was crazy for wanting him.
They fought against it. They wanted safer options, like Timothy Olyphant.
But Favreau fought tooth and nail for RDJ, and his logic is the master key to this whole comeback. Favreau said that Downey understood what makes the character tick.
He saw the meta connection, that Downey found a lot of his own life experience in Tony Stark.
It was this brilliant realization that the fictional character, the genius, billionaire, playboy who's reckless, arrogant, flawed, on the brink of self-destruction.
It was a perfect thematic parallel to Downey's own chaotic life.
And the audience would feel that. They would sense that raw, lived-in experience. The actor and the character were perfectly aligned in their journey through excess and near ruin.
So to prepare, he didn't just rely on that. He got serious physically. He gained over 20 pounds of muscle in 5 months to really embody the hero.
Iron Man comes out in May 2008. And it's a monster success. Genre-defining. Grosses $585 million worldwide.
And critics, almost universally, pointed to his unique performance as the thing that elevated it. Roger Ebert, again, he said that it's Robert Downey Jr. who powers the liftoff, separating this from most other superhero movies.
This wasn't just a hit film. It was the birth of a global star and an entire cinematic universe fueled by the immense charisma of his unique, deeply flawed persona.
So once Iron Man takes off, the whole machine of the Marvel Cinematic Universe just starts cranking, and Robert Downey Jr. quickly signs on to secure his place. 2 Iron Man sequels, The Avengers.
And his first reprisal was that little post-credit scene in The Incredible Hulk in 2008, which was the first real signal that this was all connected.
The MCU was this totally unprecedented financial experiment, and he was the indispensable centerpiece, the gravitational core holding it all together.
And because he was the first major player, the financial structure of his contract was unique and very, very lucrative, especially compared to the other heroes who came on later.
His films just became these financial juggernauts. I mean, you look at the numbers. The Avengers in 2012, that first big crossover,
Grossed over $1.52 billion worldwide. At the time, it was the 3rd highest grossing film ever.
and the success just kept compounding. Iron Man 3 in 2013 pulls in $1.215 billion.
And what's critical to understand is that while most of the other actors were getting a flat fee, RDJ had negotiated a rare back-end deal.
So he was getting a percentage of the box office gross once the film hit a certain number.
Which meant he wasn't just highly paid, he was financially tethered to the explosive success of the entire MCU.
And that had a radical impact on his bank account. He was the highest paid actor in Hollywood for 3 straight years, from 2013 to 2015.
His compensation for the first Avengers alone was reportedly around $50 million. 50. A staggering fee that included his back-end percentage.
He became a fixture on the Forbes Celebrity 100 list. He was the symbol of Hollywood's new economic model.
And he just continued to anchor the MCU. Age of Ultron, Civil War, Spider-Man, Homecoming, and then, of course, the epic conclusion.
Infinity War and Endgame.
But it's really important to remember that during this incredibly lucrative, visible MCU reign, he was still taking on other controversial and acclaimed roles.
We have to talk about Kirk Lazarus, the 2008 satirical comedy Tropic Thunder.
A massive artistic gamble. He's playing an Australian method actor who undergoes a controversial skin pigmentation procedure to play a black sergeant in a fictional Vietnam War movie.
He wore dark makeup, a wig. It immediately generated huge controversy about the nature of the performance, the appropriateness of it.
But despite all that, his meta performance, an actor playing a character, drew huge praise for its boldness and its satirical genius.
And it led to an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actor. The industry saw it as a critique of the excesses of method acting, which, I guess, insulated it from some of the harshest criticism.
And at the same time, he launched another huge franchise outside of Marvel. He played the lead in Guy Ritchie's Sherlock Holmes in 2009.
A totally different kind of intelligent eccentricity, and his kinetic, fast-paced version of Holmes earned him a Golden Globe.
It just proved his bankability wasn't limited to the Iron Man suit, and that was cemented by the sequel, A Game of Shadows, in 2011.
These non-Marvel hits just confirmed that his unique blend of wit, intelligence, and eccentricity worked in almost any big-budget film.
Meanwhile, his partnership with his wife was expanding into production. Their company, Team Downey, produced its first film, The Judge, in 2014, which he also starred in.
This wasn't just acting anymore, this was empire building. So when the Infinity Saga ends with Avengers, Endgame in 2019, it raises this huge question. What's next? What do you do when you're so tied to one character that the public can't see you as anyone else?
And his first major post-MCU role was Well, it was a bit of a public stumble.
That would be Doolittle in 2020, a very expensive family adventure film produced by Team Downey.
And despite his star power, it got just scathing reviews. It was a box office disappointment. People noted the difficult production, that it was too long, just lackluster.
And that kind of setback could have sent another actor running right back to a reliable franchise.
But instead, he engineered this brilliant, self-aware career pivot. He took on the intensely difficult antagonistic role of Louis Strauss in Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer.
It was such a deliberate strategic choice to just completely shift gears and show his range.
And to get that prestige role-playing, this calculating, resentful bureaucrat who undermines Oppenheimer Downey took a huge pay cut. He earned $4 million, way below his typical $10 to $20 million up front.
All for the chance to pursue serious dramatic complexity. A total departure from the bombastic Tony Stark persona.
And that change of pace immediately electrified the critics. The role required so much restraint, both physical and vocal. He was playing against all the familiar tics that made Tony Stark famous.
The critical consensus was overwhelming. RDJ himself called Oppenheimer the best film he'd ever been in.
Critics just lauded the performance. They said he was at his most subtle, his most menacing, and they predicted it would redefine the entire arc of his career.
And that prediction was spot on. It culminated in a historic, comprehensive awards clean sweep for Best Supporting Actor.
He won the Academy Award, his first win, after that Chaplin nomination decades earlier. Plus the Golden Globe, the BAFTA, the SAG Award, the Critics' Choice.
It was this formal, institutional recognition of his talent, proving his artistic ability existed completely independent of the Marvel machine's commercial power.
But he didn't stop with film. He's also ventured into docuseries television and, crucially, the stage.
In 2023, he hosted Downey's Dream Cars, a docuseries about converting his personal collection of gas-guzzling classic cars to electric.
And the series was successful enough to win him a Daytime Emmy for Outstanding Lifestyle Program. Then, in 2024, he stars in the HBO miniseries The Sympathizer,
where he took on this incredible acting challenge of playing 5 distinct, complex, antagonistic roles, each one representing a different piece of the American establishment.
That performance, showing just intense versatility, has already earned him a Primetime Emmy nomination.
And just to prove he can conquer any medium, he just made his Broadway debut in the title role of Ayad Akhtar's new play, McNeil.
A strictly limited engagement. I mean, this is the ultimate demonstration of artistic versatility. From $14 billion blockbusters to nuanced supporting roles to docuseries, and now to the grueling demands of live theater.
And finally, while he's embraced all these new projects, the biggest news about his future came at San Diego Comic-Con 2024.
The announcement that he would return to the MCU, but in a completely different role.
He'll be playing the notorious antagonist, Victor Von Doom Dr. Doom, in the upcoming Avengers. Doomsday and Avengers. Secret Wars.
It just signals his willingness to step back into the universe that defined his second act, but now is the villain, proving he still has the power to shape the entire franchise narrative.
When you look across this whole 3-part career, The Prodigy, The Prisoner, The Powerhouse, you see this one consistent thread in his artistry.
It's this versatility that's rooted in playing intelligent, charismatic, and deeply complicated characters.
He's known for this eclectic range of drama, comedy, action, but he's often playing geniuses, eccentrics, and people who are fundamentally flawed.
Critics have always noted his ability to fully embody a role while still retaining this little spark of RDJ's own personality. Early on, before all the legal troubles, he was described as being in a semi-constant state of amusement.
Shrugging, bubbling, quick-talking his way past every obstacle, which really set him apart from the more stoic actors of his time.
And he's even described his own technique in these really self-deprecating terms. He's called himself an incredibly gifted faker who knows very little about acting.
Which is such a paradox when you think about the sheer intensity of his preparation for a role like Chaplin.
Exactly. How can a faker commit to 6 months of mastering left-handed violin and tennis?
It seems like it comes down to an intuitive approach, not a methodical one. His goal isn't to become the character, but to make a well-written scene seem like it's improvised. He wants it to feel immediate and natural.
But his commitment to immersion when he needs it is absolute. We mentioned Chaplin, but for Tropic Thunder, the sources say he stayed in character offset for the entire shoot.
I remember a co-star saying they heard him talking to himself in character Australian accent, and all while he was going to the bathroom.
That level of dedication just doesn't line up with the faker label. It shows this profound internal commitment to the performance.
And beyond acting, he's also a serious, multi-talented musician. In 2004, right as his career was starting its slow climb back, he released his only studio album, the jazz pop record, The Futurist.
And it was surprisingly successful. It charted on the U.S. Billboard 200. It just showed his creative interests weren't limited to the screen.
He also has a deep history of singing on soundtracks. Chaplin, Ally McBeal.
And that gave us one of the most memorable moments from his short Ally McBeal run. He did that duet of Every Breath You Take with Sting on the show.
Right, in 2001, just before he was dismissed, and they later performed together again a decade later at Sting's 60th birthday concert. It just underscores that enduring connection from that really chaotic period.
And finally, we should touch on his perspective on the world and how his extraordinary journey shaped his activism and his politics.
His time in prison fundamentally shifted his perspective. He once said that his prison time was very, very, very educational for me and has informed my proclivities in politics ever since.
But when he's asked about his specific political identity, he says he's not a Republican, a liberal, or a Democrat. He presents himself as politically independent.
Although his actions show pretty consistent support for the Democratic Party in recent years. He donated to Obama's 2012 campaign, and he joined the Avengers cast to endorse Joe Biden in 2020 and Kamala Harris in 2024.
So he's willing to engage politically, even if he avoids the partisan labels.
But his most hands-on activism is focused on areas that are really related to his personal struggles and interests. He's on the board of the Anti-Recidivism Coalition,
An organization dedicated to criminal justice reform and helping formerly incarcerated people. He can speak with such profound, lived experience about the need for better support systems.
and his most ambitious public initiative is his environmental work. In 2020, he founded the Footprint Coalition.
Which is dedicated to using advanced tech robotics, nanotechnology for environmental restoration.
And this coalition actually invests. They support tangible, sustainable companies, like a French insect farming company that creates sustainable animal feed.
And a company that makes bio-based plastic alternatives. This is serious, high-tech environmental investment, not just some celebrity endorsement. He also co-wrote a book called Cool Food.
On a personal philosophy note, he's explored various faiths, and today he describes his beliefs as Jewish Buddhist.
A hybrid system that really speaks to his constant search for structure and meaning.
And fitting with his environmental and health focus, he recently shifted his diet. He was vegan for a bit, but then switched to a pescatarian diet after finding out he had low levels of vitamin B12, calcium, and iron.
He is, to his very core, the definition of constant self-evaluation, adaptation, and discipline. The complete opposite of the self-destructive person he once was.
So when you look back at the full, incredible arc of Robert Downey Jr.'s journey, it's one of modern entertainment's most profound and spectacular transformations.
You saw a troubled prodigy earn the highest critical acclaim with Chaplin, only to lose absolutely everything. His marriage, his wealth, his freedom, his reputation to addiction and incarceration.
A painful 5-year legal nightmare.
Yet, through that disciplined, non-negotiable commitment to sobriety that started in 2003, with the help of friends like Mel Gibson, producers like Joel Silver, and the partnership with his wife Susan, he rebuilt his career.
And he didn't just rebuild it to a stable point, he rebuilt it to a historic peak that saw him become the central pillar of the biggest franchise in history.
He went from being uninsurable and bankrupt in 2001 to becoming the highest-paid actor in the world and the face of the MCU, with a $14.3 billion legacy.
And then he caps it all off with the Academy Award for Oppenheimer, a performance of ultimate restraint, proving his artistic depth survived the commercial explosion.
What's truly remarkable, and I think the great insight we take away from this, is how his history was woven into his professional success. The complex, flawed, self-destructive, but ultimately redemptive Tony Stark.
The role that defined his superstardom.
It was successful precisely because the audience sensed that this actor knew exactly what it felt like to be a genius, operating constantly on the brink of collapse. The chaos RDJ struggled to manage became the charisma that saved his career.
So we'll leave you with this final provocative thought to consider. How often in life does true professional success come directly, not just from overcoming your greatest personal challenges, but from confronting, managing, and ultimately incorporating those failures into the core of your professional identity?
For RDJ, the man whose real life became the ghost of his future, the answer is clear. That failure wasn't just overcome. It was channeled, it was monetized, and it was immortalized, creating a legend that Hollywood won't soon forget.